We pray for the full recovery of the wounded and send our immense love and eternal gratitude to the families of the fallen. And sadly, there will likely be more. Before it ends, that's the way it is. Likely be more, but we'll do everything possible where that won't be the case.
It's Ken Harbaugh with the MeidasTouch Network. America is at war. I spoke to my kids on Saturday morning as the first reports were coming in, so they would remember this moment, so they would appreciate its significance. They know what their dad did before they were born. They know how much it affects me when my brothers and sisters in arms go into harm's way. But when I said to them, America is at war, my middle daughter pushed back. She said, "This is Trump's war, Dad." And in a sense, she's right. The vast majority of Americans disapprove of what is being done in our name. Our president has had every opportunity to explain the decision, to rally public support, and he does not care. Remember, we just had to sit through the longest State of the Union address in history, which would have been a great time to make the case for war with Iran. And instead, we got whatever that was. So my daughter has a point. This is a war of Donald Trump's choosing. But it is America's war because it is our weapons raining down on Iranian cities, and it is our sons and daughters, not Donald Trump's, who will carry out those missions and bear the cost. And already, Americans are dying, as are Iranians, many of them innocent. So even though we have been thrust into this by the most incompetent, corrupt, and immoral regime in American history, this is America's war, which means we have some responsibility here. Normally, it is Congress's job to make declarations of war and to constrain the executive's war-making powers. That won't happen as long as Republicans control both houses. Those Republican representatives, with fewer exceptions than I can count on one hand, have long since abdicated their duty to act as a separate branch of government, which means it is up to us, the people, the voters, to demand a Congress that upholds its constitutional prerogatives and that finally reins in this rogue presidency. I have attended or read more briefings than I can count from the so-called messaging experts in the Democratic Party about how we need to focus on the mythical kitchen table issues. I maintain that the issues we talk about on this show, war and peace, fundamental civil rights, government brutality as policy, these are kitchen table issues. These are things that American families care about and are talking about around the kitchen table. Maybe I'm wrong, but my guest today doesn't think so. And over the past few months, she has spent countless hours talking to Americans about these very issues. Ambassador Bridget Brink is running for Congress in Michigan's 7th District. She served as our ambassador to Ukraine at the beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion and later resigned in protest over Donald Trump's decision to stab Ukraine in the back. We've had Ambassador Brink on the show a number of times because she really does have her finger on the pulse of what voters in a purple district are thinking. Just one note, we recorded this right before American bombs started falling on Iran, but in some ways that makes Ambassador Brink's insights and observations all the more prescient. If you want to help her campaign, please click the link in the show notes. Here's our conversation. Bridget, thanks so much for joining us. You are running in a purple district. It was less than a 4-point spread last time, taking on a Republican incumbent. What are you hearing on the ground from Michiganders who are fed up with the state of the economy, the state of America's reputation across the world? I mean, it feels like we are reaching the kind of inflection point or realignment that could shape American politics in fundamental ways after November.
Oh, Ken, thanks so much for having me on. It's great to see you again. I have to say, what I'm hearing, and we're in the middle of a door knocking campaign where we're knocking 10,000 doors in the middle of Michigan winter, and we're hearing exactly this, that people are at a breaking point, that they're incredibly frustrated with not only our local representative, Tom Barrett, who I'm running against, but also the Trump administration, and that a lot of the promises that had been made are not being fulfilled. And meanwhile, all the votes have been doing things that are raising prices, whether it's votes to continue tariffs against Canada, our biggest trading partner, whether it's votes to take away health care, to our moms and our kids, and that was with the big ugly bill, but also, again, not to extend the ACA subsidies, whether it's what they're seeing around the country in Minneapolis and other places where, rights, foundational rights and freedoms are really being tested and crossed in ways that I think we as Americans have never seen before. And what I'm hearing on those doors is that people want someone just to stand up and do what's right. This isn't even a political issue. And I mean, my district is a purple district. So there are people all across the spectrum. And what I'm hearing is that people just feel like they want leaders in Washington who are going to do what is right for the district, no matter what. And that makes me even, I guess, more determined than ever that my decision to resign in opposition to the Trump administration and the policies that I saw when I was ambassador to Ukraine, and to come home to Michigan and to run for office. So we're feeling really energized. We're taking all that input because I think this is also part of the problem is we need leaders who will listen. And then we need leaders who are going to step up and act. And that's exactly what I'll do if elected to Congress.
Are people on the ground tying some of those international issues to domestic issues, to quality of life issues and the price of things? Are they looking at our threats against Iran or our actions in Venezuela, which, by the way, still has the Maduro regime in power? Or I think most outrageously are threats against a NATO ally, Denmark, over a piece of territory that already gives us all the cooperation we want, Greenland. Are those conversations coming up? And if they are, how are people relating to them given the struggles around the kitchen table?
Well, absolutely. I mean, first of all, we have a lot of people who, we are a border state, right? So Canada is our closest neighbor and our closest friend and the most important trading partner for us. And this includes for farmers who need to have equipment. It includes for auto workers where auto parts go back and forth over Canada multiple times. It includes all of the things that small businesses need when they're selling their goods. So one thing that people can't understand at all is why we're putting tariffs on Canada. This hurts Michigan directly. And it also is what Tom Barrett continues to vote for and has enabled multiple times. Another piece of our district, we're a kind of, I'd say, practical, do what's right, have integrity kind of district. And I don't think people understand why we're abandoning our friends. There's a clear understanding that we need and want friends and allies overseas and partners. And so if you look at what's happening, with Greenland, if you look at what's happening with Ukraine, people can't understand it. And I think this is a big part of the problem. Again, what I hear and see is that people just want someone who's going to stand up for what's right and do the right thing, no matter what the cost. And that's exactly what I am prepared to do, what I've done before, what I'll do again.
It's Ken with a quick break to tell you about my Substack page, where you'll find bonus episodes and other exclusive content. And subscribing is a way to support this show directly without us having to rely on advertisers. For those of you who have signed up, thank you so much. It is growing harder and harder to rely on traditional media. Just look at what has happened over at CBS. So independent news is going to have to make up the gap. And if you believe in what we're trying to do here in the interviews and the commentary that this show brings you, please consider pitching in. It's free to sign up, and that itself is helpful because popular shows get recommended even more people. And if you're able to afford a paid subscription, they start at $8 a month. Every dollar goes back into what we're doing. Thanks for helping out. You and I are both proud Americans. We have served our country in conflict zones. I think the Trump administration doesn't understand what American pride really looks like in the hearts of people who have served their country. And I'm thinking about, we'll flash it on the screen here, this image after America won the gold medal in hockey of a bald eagle stomping on, killing a Canadian goose. And as a border state with a massive trading partner in Canada, I was in Greenland recently with a Canadian envoy. I have a gut reaction to that perversion of the idea of patriotism, the idea that that kind of pride means stomping on other countries. Mm-hmm. This might be a little esoteric, but I'm wondering, as a former ambassador, a diplomat, and as someone who is now running in a state where surely there are there's lots of cross-border trade. You talk with Canadians all the time. Are we approaching the point where people just outright reject this jingoistic, hubristic version of patriotism that isn't patriotism at all?
Well, that's exactly what I'm hearing in our district, because we know the Canadians are our neighbors. They're our friends. They're our trading partners. They're people that we interact with almost on a daily basis here in Michigan. So what you're saying is exactly right. I mean, I served our country for 28 years in a way that was for 5 presidents, both Democratic and Republican, but based on our values. And I always was proud to do that service because we believed in a few things as Americans: freedom, democracy, rule of law. I think what we're seeing and what I hear from my neighbors and friends here in our district is that all of those basic foundations are being not just questioned, but tested in a very dangerous way. And in my experience serving our country overseas, and thanks so much for your service and for everyone who has served our country, we do it because we love our country. And I see myself, and I know you do too, as a strong patriot. And that is why this fight is so important. And I've seen in these countries overseas, especially in young democracies, I've seen that light of freedom go out. And it goes out bit by bit, step by step. And it's things like muzzling of the free press, of educational institutions, of businesses. It includes weaponizing the justice system so that it goes after perceived enemies. It includes using the security forces in ways that don't protect fundamental rights and freedoms of the population. And I'm not talking about some far-flung place on the other side of the world. I'm talking about our own country. I never in a million years imagined that I would be here talking to you about this, about America. And I think that's how most people feel. We can disagree on many things. We can have healthy rivalry and competition. I believe in competition. It was a great game. I'm really proud of our both men and women's hockey teams and all of those folks who got medals. We like that. Competition makes us stronger. But the way in which our country is being run undermines our very values. And what I hear from Michiganders is that it undermines our very decency. And that is something that I think has often set Americans apart from other big and strong and powerful countries around the world, is we are a decent people. And somehow this is not how the country is being run.
I have to ask you about Ukraine. We just passed the anniversary, grim milestone, 4 years since the full-scale Russian invasion. What's your assessment of the situation in Ukraine right now?
Well, I think the bottom line is Trump has failed on Ukraine. So he promised to end the war on day one of his administration. And what has happened? Putin has only escalated. 2025 marks the deadliest for civilians, that's for men, women, and children in Ukraine since 2022. And every single day, Putin continues to launch missiles and drones, which are going after Ukraine's energy grid. And this is the coldest, harshest, hardest winter of this 4-year war. Why is this happening? Because, and as we saw and I saw last year when I resigned, is that appeasing a dictator never leads to peace. It only leads to more war. And the lesson that is not being learned is that we need to work with our partners and our allies to stop Putin. And it's much more important than only Ukraine itself. It's important to Europe and it's important to America, because Putin's ambitions are not just territorial on Ukraine. They're much wider, and it's a big and grave risk to our national security. So I believe that, unfortunately, we're in a very poor position for our national security. I also see the Ukrainians continue to stand and fight. And that means that light of freedom, that fight for freedom continues in Ukraine, I think in many parts of America as well, in Europe. And that's the side I'm on. I'm going to keep supporting that and fighting for it myself.
Well, thanks, Bridget. Where can people learn more about your campaign?
Well, thanks for asking. This is such an important seat, not only for my district in mid-Michigan, but it's going to be one of the seats that helps determine the House majority in the midterm elections. So if you're interested in my campaign, I would love to have your support. And you can find me at bridgetbrink.com. It's going to be a tough and long campaign, but with your support, we can win the seat and we can help take back the House and hold the administration accountable.
Great. Links below. Thanks, Bridget.
Thank you. Thanks, Ken.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.